Good evening. Just checking out the mic. Good evening. I am Matthew Steward, President and founder of Steward Speakers. I would like to welcome each of you to the Steward Speakers 2022-2023 speaker season. I am thrilled to once again have the opportunity to share with each of you Steward Speakers' mission to inform, inspire, and invoke action by fostering meaningful dialogue and cultural exchanges. We remain committed to bringing exceptional lectures and events designed to engage youth, families, adult learners, and others who would rarely have access to nationally and internationally renowned African American leaders. As always, we are grateful for all of our supporters, including our title sponsor, IUPUI, for it is, yes, for its continued commitment to engaging initiatives that support diversity, equity, and education. Tonight is no exception. This season, our theme, Arts and Culture and the African American Influence, is our intentional effort to highlight the impact that African American art and culture has had in this country. It has the power to educate, challenge, elevate. It is how we share our history, interpret how we see our present, and point the way to the future. In all of these forms, African Americans' arts and culture shows our complexity, our hope, our struggle, our power, and our courage. It shows our ability to love, to embrace, and to nurture. Our sense of style as reflected in fashion and music and sometimes rhythm. Some of us don't have much. Literature shines brightly and is often coveted. Though imitated, it can never be duplicated. This season, we have seen our history through the one-woman production of Fannie Lou Hamer's story, and on April 13th, we will host our annual gala at the Indianapolis Downtown Marriott. This event will be a special evening of celebration. We will share more later this evening. As we look forward to this evening's conversation, it is our sincere hope that our sustained efforts to keep the conversations going will help bridge the gaps that exist between people of different races, ethnicities, cultures, genders, and generations. And now, I would like to introduce our MC for this evening, Emmy award-winning anchor and reporter, Mark Mullins of WRTV 6.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see you. Love being back here for this event. It's one of my favorite events, and I'll tell you why, because it's very pertinent, especially now during Black History Month. These conversations that we have and these gatherings that we have and the dialogue that we get going proves to me and shows that we have a dedication to show that Black history is alive. It keeps moving. We're living it now. We're talking about what's going on now because we're making history now. Before I left the studio tonight, I had the privilege of airing finally a piece I had been working on for a couple of weeks about a woman who worked at my station who made history, Barbara Boyd. I had a unique opportunity to invite her back to the place she called her second home for 25 years. We sat down and had a long conversation about the road she paved for other black journalists in this town. And she called me several times since that interview. Oh, I forgot to tell you this thing. Oh, I want to include this too. Make sure you say this. But at the end, she said, I know I may have paved the way and I didn't look at it at the time. And I may have been the only black journalist on TV starting in 1969. She said, but I look at all the television stations now and I see black faces morning, noon, and night. And I'm proud to be a part of that. And so I come here tonight proud to be part of her legacy as we celebrate a moving and a living history. We're talking arts tonight, and we've got a great program lined up for you. And I want to bring up first a representative from our title sponsor tonight from IUPUI. Yeah. This is Dr. Karen Dace, Vice Chancellor of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. She serves as IUPUI's Senior Diversity Officer, tasked with institutionalizing effective practices in equity and diversity within IUPUI's units. She also oversees the Multicultural Success Center and the Adaptive Educational Services Program. Since coming to IUPUI in the fall of 2013, she's made great strides to improve campus diversity. She began her efforts with a survey of the faculty and staff and the students to determine the perception of the campus's climate of terms of diversity and inclusiveness. She took a poll, took the survey, took the temperature, and using that data, she developed an action plan to target areas for improvement. She created a diverse strategic plan with measurable initiatives to build a campus committed to diversity and inclusiveness and has already achieved those positive results. Previously, she served as a role of Deputy Chancellor for Division of Diversity, Access, and Equity at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. She was also an associate professor in the Department of Communication Studies. She's been the co-principal investigator for several grant-funded projects aimed at youth, impacting the future of youth. She serves as the regional director for the District 5 Commission of Access, Diversity, and Excellence for the Association of Public Land Grant Universities. Do you get it all? Yes, please welcome Dr. Karen Dace.
And I'm trying to figure out how they knew my theme song. But good evening, thank you. My name is Karen Dace, and I have the privilege of serving as Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at IUPUI. And on behalf of our Chancellor, Andy Klein, I am delighted to be bringing greetings from Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis. One of the things we're most proud of is being a title sponsor for the Steward Speaker Series. I'm particularly happy to bring you greetings tonight as we prepare for a discussion of arts and culture and the African American influence. At IUPUI, we are proud of the artistic endeavors of our very own Vernon Williams, who many of you know wrote the powerful play, among many, about the establishment of our institution on land once occupied by a thriving Black community. His play, The Price of Progress, lays bare the impact of creating an institution of higher education at the expense of an entire community. Through his art, Vernon Williams speaks the painful truth that must not be forgotten. In addition to being the communication and engagement strategist in the Office of Community Engagement at IUPUI, Vernon is a member of the Africana Repertory Theater, or ARTI as we call it. Established in 2018, ARTI leverages the creative and communal power of the arts as a vehicle to bring about social transformation. Through theatrical productions, curated events, public conversations, and community-engaged practice, Artie seeks to connect communities to the cultural and artistic legacy of the African diaspora. Artie is also the home of Onyx Fest, Indy's first and only theater festival dedicated to the stories of Black playwrights, and Vernon Williams serves as the executive producer. Tonight's panel discussion, featuring Ashley Chu, Ninth Wonder, Alan Bacon, and Molly Jeffers, and the incomparable Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, is the perfect exemplar of the Black arts and the Black arts movement. In her poem, Vive Noir, Indianapolis's own, the late Murray Evans, declares, "I'm going to spread out over America, intrude my proud Blackness all over the place." And that's exactly what Black artists do. In essays, poetry, music, dance, literature, theater, spoken word, Black artists create and recreate. They tell our stories with authenticity and care. They express Blackness in ways that other Black folk recognize, feel, and understand deeply, instantly. We see ourselves expressed in ways we could not fathom on our own. We improvise and give the world jazz. We improvise again and give the world hip hop. We pick up paintbrushes and make the pain of Black Lives Matter a beautiful piece of art displayed on streets and hung in galleries. Like the late great saxophonist John Coltrane's composition, Black art is a love supreme for a people who weren't supposed to know love or survive, let alone find a way to express themselves artistically. But it is that supreme love for the culture, for the people, that lives, that tells our story, that inspires movements, that gives voice to what cannot be spoken, that takes joy, pain, struggle, victory, and empowers communities. How fortunate we all are to be here tonight and to hear from these great artists. Thank you, and enjoy the evening.
Very inspiring words there. Thank you. Tonight would not be possible without the tremendous support of IUPUI, our title sponsor, but also our other sponsors, which we want to give some acknowledgement to this evening. So we thank IUPUI, the Lilly Endowment, Inc., U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Central Indiana Community Foundation, Wabash College, FedEx, the Marion County Public Health Department, Mays Chemical Company, Citizens Energy Group, AFS CME Local 107, A Total Solution Accounting, WRTV, the Idle-Jorg Museum, the Indianapolis Recorder, and Heart Convos. Please give a round of applause for our sponsors tonight. Dr. Michael Eric Dyson is an African American. He's religious, cultural studies scholar, a university professor, best-selling author, and public intellectual. Dyson, who has taught at Chicago Theological Seminary, Brown University, the University of North Carolina, and Columbia University, is presently the Ida B. Wells Barnett University professor at DePaul University. Dyson received his BA in philosophy, magna cum laude, from Carson Newman College, and his MA and his PhD degrees from religion from Princeton University. His commentary on American culture has landed him on Nightline, Charlie Rose, Good Morning America, Today, and Oprah. He has been heard on every major national show on National Public Radio. He has written numerous academic publications, including Cultural Critique, Cultural Studies, DePaul Law Review, The Leadership Quarterly, New Art Examiner, JAC, a journal of composition theory, Social Text, Religion and Literature, Theology Today, Union Seminary Quarterly Review, Princeton Seminary Bulletin, and Black Sacred Music, just to name a few. Dyson has been hailed for both his intellectual acuity and rhetorical gifts. As the Chronicle of Higher Education said, quote, he can rivet classrooms and chapels alike with his oratory. He's been called one of the youngest stars in the firmament of Black intellectuals and lauded as one of the most important voices of his generation. According to the Village Voice, Dyson possesses an irresistible preacher's cadence and cast iron memory. His books have gained wide critical and public acclaim from scholars and journalists alike. About his writing, Time magazine says, in his prose, one hears the fervor of a Sunday sermon. In his ideas, one sees an analytic scrupulousness of a man who knows a thing or two about tenure committees. Dyson's 1993 debut, Reflecting Black, African-American Culture Criticism, won Gustavus Myers Center for Human Rights Award in 1994. His critically acclaimed follow-up, 1994's Making Malcolm, The Myth and Meaning of Malcolm X, was hailed as a study that is as substantive and comprehensive as public criticism of such a figure can hope to be. And he was named Notable Book of 1994 by both the New York Times and the Philadelphia Inquirer. Dyson is also author of the acclaimed Between God and Gangsta Rap, Bearing Witness to Black Culture, was named as a best bet in USA Today, and the national bestseller Race Rules Navigating the Color Line, which has been praised as an important document for the end of the century. In January 2000, the Free Press published Dyson's I May Not Get There With You, the true Martin Luther King Jr. He has also written scores of mass publications, including the New York Times, Chicago Tribune, the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, Vibe Magazine, and Rolling Stone. Dyson has also written about In Time, U.S. News and World Report, USA Today, Current Biography, and The New Yorker, and has been featured in Essence Magazine, The Village Voice, and on the cover of the Chronicle of Higher Education. Dyson has lectured across the nation and throughout the world in countless colleges, universities, and public auditoriums. He won the 1992 Award of Excellence for Magazines from the National Association of Black Journalists. And tonight, he graces us with his presence and leads our panel discussion. Please welcome to the stage, Dr. Michael Eric Dyson.
Wow, what an introduction. Man, half the program is over right now. What an honor it is to be here tonight and to have this opportunity to introduce some remarkable young folk, some inspiring artists, cultural creators, and entrepreneurs. What a wonderful night to be here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Who y'all coach is? All right. Man, can a brother get a shot? Whoa, you just pull a dude off of TV. I expect to be chosen next. The Indianapolis Colts' new coach, the Negro Michael Eric Dyson. No disrespect to my man. But what an honor it is to be here tonight and to get this program going. And I want to introduce some remarkable young folk. First up is Gang Gang. I like that. I know y'all know them. They're a tremendous young couple. The fear and uncertainty with the pandemic, coupled with the continued social unrest, led Molly Bacon and Alan Bacon to leave their jobs. Now just meditate on that. They left their jobs. I know it's their jobs. They left their jobs to do what they do, right? That's remarkable. A lot of folk think about it, but don't do it. They left their jobs to create a cultural development firm, Gang, similar to a tech startup in combining arts and culture and its intersection with race and equity. They are good looking, they are brilliant, they are gifted, they are sweet and warm. Let's welcome Molly Bacon and Alan Bacon, Gang. Another hometown favorite, the remarkable young woman named Ashley Chu, based out of New York, is an Indianapolis native. She made headlines with her Black Models Matter tote, right? And she, of course, was not only a remarkable native, but a woman with a thirst for more fulfillment and a vision artistically that continues to this day. She believes that it was a need for an urgent call for diversity on the runway and behind the scenes to fashion that led her to design that bag. And we literally tote around the meaning of what it means to be Black and to matter and to be a model. She is remarkable, she's brilliant, she's beautiful. The remarkable and gifted Ashley Chu, step on up into the arena. This next brother needs no introduction, but we're gonna give him one anyway. Y'all know he is one of the most remarkable producers of sound, sonic technician, remarkable architect of possibility and imagination. He is a super producer, a CEO, a DJ, and a professor from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. He began his career as the main producer for the group Little Brother and has also worked with Jigga, Jay-Z, Kendrick Lamar, now number 2 on the list, but we're gonna debate what that might mean. Destiny's Child, Bills, I'm just saying. Mary J. Blige, Jean Grey, Wale, Murs, Drake. Jealousy is just love and hate at the same time. Show some respect for the yellow Negroes up in here. Buckshot, Chris Brown, Rhapsody, Erykah Badu, Jill Scott, Big Boy of Outkast, and I'm thankful because Big Boy never gets the kind of love that he deserves, but he's working with this great man. Ludacris, Mac Miller, and David Banner, to name a few. His name is Patrick Denard Doufit, better known as Ninth Wonder. A great and gifted man. So you can see we have a remarkable and gifted panel, and these young folk, these gifted folk, are going to give us an extraordinary insight into the nature of art and culture in our own time. What I want to do now is to talk about a gentleman. He doesn't know we're going to speak about him. For 37 years, Steward Speakers has brought to us nationally and internationally known speakers to the Indianapolis community. Founded by Matthew Steward in 1986, some of y'all wasn't even born. The mission of Steward Speakers is to inform, inspire, and invoke action by fostering meaningful dialogue and cultural exchanges. I ask to draw you to the screen. I ask to draw your attention to the screen as we honor the man who has made the commitment to bring to Indianapolis enlightened guest speakers like you see tonight, remarkable figures in their own right, to sustain efforts to keep the conversations going, bridging the gaps that exist between peoples of different races, ethnicities, cultures, genders, and generations to the Indianapolis community and its surrounding cities. Check out the video.
Yeah. What else, Stu? Yeah. It was 1986, all started as a dream that became this. Made it through all the pain and frustration. Came away from the bottom like a basement. Do you know what great is? Who better than Stu? Hit up Harry Belafonte, brought him straight to the school. Dick Gregory in the building, giving game to the youth. And he's still going at it, so we gotta salute. What up, Bill Mays? That's Mr. Black Business. Stu partnered up, clued them in on the mission. Brought some other folks in and they said, let's get it. Ever since then they been winning. Showing black kids success in their image. You can go big cause Common done did it. You can chop the beat like Knife on the flipped it. Whole city going up when Miss Rashad visit. We some youngins on the rise like Angela Rye. Paying homage to the past, it helps to the fly. Salute to you, Stu, one hell of a guy. I gotta give flowers, I'm thinking it's time. Think it's time we celebrate you. Inform, inspire, invoking the youth. Let the truth come through. It's nothing we can't do. Say his name while he here, yeah, it's all about Stu. Think it's time we celebrate you. Inform, inspire, invoking the youth. Let the truth come through. It's all about you. Say his name while he here, yeah, it's all about Stu.
Way, way bigger than the block. Bigger than these four walls, so big that we gotta take it to the top. Take it to the schools, give it to the kids. Make believe crazy like we talking to the whiz. But we talking about our kids planting seeds so we know that they won't ever forget. 35 years of some greatness, trying to see where we finna take this, make this a space, putting faith in the kids, educate so we know how they did what they did. Do it all again, inside, inspire their hearts for the win with these words that we give. I think it's time we talk about those that came before, who opened the door to explore, look for more, making dreams a reality. Everything they did, can't ignore, know they proud of me.
Think it's time we celebrate you. Inform, inspire, invoking the youth. Let the truth come through. It's nothing we can't do. Say his name while he here, yeah, it's all about Stu. Think it's time we celebrate you. Inform, inspire, invoking the youth. Let the truth come through. It's all about you. Say his name while he here, yeah, it's all about Stu. Yeah. What else, Stu? Yeah.
Where is my picture?
I just want you to know the big young gentleman created that song, and this gentleman was a part of the engineering process of putting that together just for you. Put it down.
You want to make a comment? You want to make a comment? Yes.
For sure, for sure. Now, this is not supposed to happen without me knowing about it. Wow. So I am just tremendously honored and grateful to the Indianapolis community and to Dr. Dyson and the panel this evening. And I was really shocked. It sounded like Common almost doing that. So thank you very much. I am honored, and not to prolong the program, I really appreciate each and every one. And this has been 37 years of joy and love, and there are 37 more years in me. Thank you.
Excellent. What a beautiful way to kick off the program by acknowledging its progenitor and a man who has helped us inspire the masses across the years, indeed across the decades. Are you saying I was younger when I started coming? Are you saying I'm aging? My favorite part was where I didn't appear in that video. But look, thank you so very much. You are chocolate charming. You are ebony ecstasy unfurled in coffee flesh, right? So I'm representing for all the light-skinned Negroes up in here right now. Drake, Steph Curry, help us come back. We've been in exile for so long. It's hard out here for a pimp. That's a public intellectual with moral principles. Okay, so let's start with Gang Gang, because when we talk about art and culture, right, when we think about the possibility of inspiring human beings through the creation and production of artistic forms of expression, music, painting, drawing, ballet, dance, hip hop, right? We think about the ability of one human being to inspire and to connect with others, perhaps the masses by the millions, or maybe in a solitude that includes only one other person. But art is extremely important to the creation of culture. Culture, the residue and the receptacle of so much of the effort of the human being as an agent of his or her own desire and design to move forward in the world. So I want to turn to Gang Gang, giving up your jobs, well-paying jobs. I'm just assuming, I don't know anything personally. I didn't get any loans from you. But giving up well-paying jobs, you see they're wonderful human beings. What really motivated you? I know we read about the pandemic and so on, but what was the key element that really inspired y'all to take that step? You had obviously been thinking about it for a while, so talk to us about that process.
We weren't actually thinking about it for a while, but can I start with thanks?
Yes.
And hi to everybody. I'm Molly. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the Steward Speakers team for having us. I've been a fan for a long time. The first time I heard you speak was at one of their events, so it is an honor to be here tonight. So just to say thanks and hello, and okay, loaded question. So do you want to go?
Well, yeah, I could start. So, I mean, we're in the thick of everything 2020, and there's this racial pandemic. And there's the health, pandemic and COVID, and we've never been further apart. So if everything in 2020 was about what separates people, we wanted to build an organization or a movement that would bring people together. And the best way to do that is through art and culture. So understanding just the power of art and culture, and in that moment, that's what we turn to as far as a way forward. How can we realize equity? What does it feel like to be in a city with more beauty, equity, and culture? And we wanted to do just that.
I might add that if I go back to 2020 and I really think about it, our phones, our emails were really ringing off the hook. People were asking us for help with their DEI plans. Everybody was can you guys hear? Can you hear me okay? Everybody was asking for help with their statement because that's what everybody was writing at the time. Like, we need a statement, we need a plan, we need to hurry up and improve our whatever diversity plan. And that did not feel like enough to do at the time. I had been asking for years, throughout my whole career, to be writing somebody's diversity plan. And now finally they're asking me in 2020, and then suddenly I don't have time for it because it seemed like not enough. And so our whole thing was, well, what is something movable? What does equity in action look like at this point? And what can we just get out there and try? And so Gang Gang has been a big experiment. It is a startup because we are trying new things with this kind of motivation that we need to do something versus write something. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so the statement made, yeah, please. So the statement was about work and not words, which really prompted the creation of the organization. But we also know just how important art is in the Black experience in America, from the diaspora to now. I mean, you look at the Renaissance periods, even during slavery, and the Negro spirituals, and the wade in the water wasn't just about the spiritual connotation, but get in the water so the dogs can't smell you as you're running to freedom. And then there's the Harlem Renaissance, and then we have the 1960s, and here's James Baldwin and Curtis Mayfield and Marvin Gaye. We had Jimi Hendrix and Maya Angelou, and just how each of these periods, and we're experiencing one now that we feel was in response to 2020, where you see just another generation group of artists that is instilling so much more identity and purpose and authorship into a people, into a culture. So that's the special part, as far as the why behind, what you may see and read about Gang Gang, but really privileged to participate in this renaissance.
Mm-hmm. Very well stated. Very well stated. So how's Gang Gang going? Look, it's hard up here. Just calm down, okay?
Is that a real question?
It's real.
No, man, I didn't think that so many people would get it, so soon.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely didn't anticipate at the time, like my afro being on the front page of the New York Times Art and Culture section wasn't like something that we visualized just happening so quickly. But being featured in Forbes, and we have this art fair called Butter, which is over Labor Day weekend. And it was an art fair to challenge the dichotomy between value and worth as it relates to Black people creating art. I mean, so if Black Lives Matter is still in question, of course Black art matters is something that we should address. So we've experienced some success. Butter has grown from 4,000 attendees and selling $65,000 worth of art in a weekend to over 8,000 attendees just this past year, and we sold over $250,000 worth of art. So this is equity in action. It's about just really understanding how to center the creative economy in the city to help produce more beauty, equity, and culture.
Very good. Excellent. Miss Ashley Chu, speaking about what matters, you ingeniously absorbed an anthem, a credo, a theme from a cultural moment of resistance, and attached to it a recognition of style, of grace, of beauty, and the necessity for acknowledging a space where those characteristics could be appreciated. We see them manifest amply in you, of course, but to extend that beyond your own career and your own ambition to create a forum, a platform, just by toting a bag, but much more than that, to be able to say to the world what is of essence to you. Talk to us about how you came to that position as well.
Hello, hi, I'm Ashley Chu. It's so great to see everybody and be back in Indianapolis. How I got to that point was I was working, I've always been an artist. I went to Broward Hill High School and was in the fine arts magnet, and I modeled for several years, probably even like a decade, and I noticed the lack of diversity in the fashion industry, and this is when activism was like not cool. You could be fired, you could be blacklisted, you could be canceled. Like this is before, it was really accepted and people were still really afraid to speak up. So I did what I do best and painted something. And I took it to a casting and it went viral, again, before viral was cool. And it just super took off. And I've spoken at many places about these things, about diversity and representation. And for me, it comes down to you go where you feel you are reflected. And although I no longer model full-time, I'm an artist full-time. And as a Black woman painter in New York City full-time with my own studio, there's not that many of us. So, so although I am no longer doing runway work, it is still important to me to show up as myself fully and have my work show up fully, because that can inspire the next artist, the next curator, the next director, the next creative director, writer, anybody. So it goes beyond Black Models Matter, because models are who? Representation. If you walk in Target and you don't see people that look like you, if you turn on the news and you don't see people that look like you, you're not gonna wanna pursue that particular career path. So for me, it goes beyond the runways. It's about seeing yourself reflected in mass media.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Talk specifically about Black Matters Tote and what that represented and represents to you.
Well, I was always the kid, like, drawing on my clothes, like, cutting them up, cutting up Barbie clothes. My mom's in the audience. She didn't care. I still cut up my clothes. And I was literally just painting it, and just, I didn't think, and, like, I thought, like, a few bloggers might see it. But literally, like, 3 a.m., the Huffington Post was like, "We need to talk to you." And I'm like, how did you even get my information?
What year is that?
2015, so way before.
Oh, that's way before.
Activism was
You're doing
a
your thing, yeah.
Right now, the bag has retired to a museum in the Netherlands, so it's been there for 2 years.
Very good. Excellent. Very nice.
Yeah, it was just something I was doing authentically, and I think that is why it went viral, because back then you went viral for not trying to go viral. So I don't think I would have done that in 2022. 2023, I hate to say it, but it was something. I'm a painter. I was also modeling. It just worked.
Right, right. Beautiful. Well, your mother is an artist as well, having produced on canvas of reality your beauty. Stand up, mama. Stand up, mom. Stand up, mom. Look at there. Drake said finer than a ticket on the dash. All right. So, Ninth Wonder. Ninth Wonder. I mean, not just because he's my friend. This is one of the most majestic sonic architects and producers we have ever had in this country, right? That's just real talk. That's real talk. And he has an exemplary humility. Not that he's not confident about what he's doing. You can't work with Little Brother and all these other stars and artists that you work with without having a sense of confidence. But Brother Naim, talk to us about working in a culture industry and working within the realms of a culture that has literally reshaped the landscape of American society.
First of all, I will say thank you for everybody letting me be here. This is my friend for a very long time. Please give it up for this gentleman again. I wanted to say this. 13 years ago, I passed you walking out of, we were at Rock the Bells Festival in Maryland. The first time I met you. And I saw you and I was scared to talk to you because that was my first time meeting you. And I introduced myself to you as Ninth Wonder, and you called me professor. That was the first time that anybody, and I had been teaching for 4 years, but you were the first person in academia outside the school I worked at that called me professor. So thank you, because that was the first time I actually believed it. You know, working in my culture is a few things that I had to understand. I had to understand that a lot of people don't understand that the hip hop industry and the hip hop culture is two different things. Right. I think a lot of times we like to say that when something bad happens to one of our children of hip hop, we like to blame it on the culture. But it's more about what the industry has done to our culture. The hip hop culture has went through its own version of COINTELPRO, which I know I might scare some people when I say that, but but that's what it is. And I understood the difference between the industry and the hip hop community and culture. And I also understood that I had a torch to pass, and I could not hold it for very long. That torch was passed to me from Pete Rock and DJ Premier. That torch was passed to them from Teddy Riley and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and Babyface. That torch was passed to them from Lamont Dozier, Gamble and Huff, Norm Whitfield, and every other great producer from the 1970s, all the way back to Berry Gordy and the Funk Brothers and Quincy Jones.
Right.
So once I understood it was bigger than me, then I knew exactly how I needed to be. And I met some young people today that was also making beats in Olivet Missionary Baptist Church. And my job is to pass the torch to them some way, somehow. So I just operate like I'm a link in the chain. I'm not the chain. And I've always been that way. Understanding the history of it, you and I have taught the history in so many different universities. Right now, you're at Vanderbilt. I'm at Duke University. But to make sure our next generation understands the chain, and the next generation understands that the story comes from us. We are supposed to teach the story. We are the practitioners of the story. So once I understood that, I knew what my place was in this game. It wasn't about just making beats. It wasn't about being famous. Like, fame is fleeting. That's, you know, we have a bigger job to do and a better job to do. And so I found my place in that, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Amen. I'm old enough to remember the origins of hip hop, both as a culture industry and as a culture formation. All right, we'll ask.
How much time we got?
Right.
I do this once a week. How much time we got?
Yeah, and we're gonna let him answer that, you know, because you're talking to one of the greatest figures within hip hop, period. I can't say that enough. I also recommend you listen to Mos Def's opening song, right? On Black on Both Sides, right? And he talks about hip hop in a brilliant song about what it can and cannot do. Speeches my hammer, bang the world into shape. Now let it fall, right? Just think about that. Now, Ninth Wonder, but what I wanted to say is that within, you named brilliantly in what Nietzsche would call a genealogy, Foucault as well, right? A genealogy, you brilliantly laid out Norm Whitfield. How many people even know who Norm Whitfield is, right? But for this young man to understand what came before him, with that fuzz and that wah-wah paddle, and how he muddied up the pure sound of Motown and articulated the political sensibility through sound, what Stevie was doing in words, right? This is what he does, like, for real. Like, he's that good. But one of the things I remember, now that masses of Black people, among others, embrace it, at the beginning, that wasn't how it was. Right? And I wanted you to talk about, because I talk of this often to older Black people. I say, look, including my age, I say, it ain't like we were saying we play no heavy backbeat, just R&B smooth. That was us. You mad that your kids go to the white man who was accepting and embracing your kids when you spurned them, and then when they get successful, you demand they be responsible when you were irresponsible in producing, right? I want Ninth to talk about that, because he can talk about it far better than me.
Ooh. Oh, God. Okay. Hip-hop is a culture we've been ashamed of, but we forget that happened to jazz too, right? Jazz was a form of music that came along that the Blacks in the early 1900s kind of shunned jazz, right? Understand that Nas was looked at by my parents and elders the same way John Coltrane was looked at. And I think we sometimes forget that, that we sometimes shun the generation of next in the music. And sometimes we push it away and we dismantle it and we abandon it, and somebody comes along and picks it up. Right. It's not gentrification, it's genreification. That people come along and scoop this thing up and call it and want to tell the story, and then we turn around and get mad and say, well, hip hop is ours. But by that time, it's too late. So one thing we can't do is we can't let the powers that be and the TV that be tell us what the culture is. We never could, right?
Right.
The only way I knew about Norm Whitfield and the only way I knew about all of these artists I have, last count, my last vinyl collection was 42,000. And that's mainly from the 1970s. And the way I knew about that was the music that was used in the hip hop records that I loved. And that was a bridge to go back, to search, to look for. But at the same time, while this particular piece of music may be a piece from Les McCann, Chuck D is rapping over it.
Right.
And what is he saying to me? He's saying Fannie Lou Hamer, and he's saying, I got a letter from the government the other day. Like, he's saying this stuff. And when I was in the seventh grade, I wouldn't have known about the Panthers if it wasn't for Chuck D, right? Which made me go back and learn about the Panthers,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
But then in that turn made me go back and learn about some more, right? So hip hop, for the question, to answer your question, hip hop was the bridge for me. It was the bridge for me to go all the way back as far as I possibly could. And at the time, while my elders couldn't understand it, it was speaking to me in a way that maybe Luther Vandross couldn't do at the time, or maybe somebody else couldn't do at the time.
Right.
But when I learned about Lewis Lattimore and Gary Morgan and Madam C.J. Walker, I promise you, my brother, a teacher did not teach me that. A rapper taught me that in 1988. And I think we need to start looking at the beauty and what the good things that hip hop has done. It is the #1 selling genre of music in the world. It is our biggest cultural export.
Right.
And it's time for us to need to understand that we need to claim these things before somebody comes along and buys it for cheap.
Y'all just hear that now. Y'all just hear that. And it surpassed country music. I'm living in Nashville now, right? He stopped loving her today. George Jones the coldest, the possum was coldest. But see, I love the relationship between hip hop and country anyway. If I had killed you when I met you, I would have been out of jail by now. That's gangster country, man. That's gangster country. Johnny Cash, I killed a man just to see him. Come on. I mean, so we demonizing, little brother, Ninth Wonder, Jay, Nas, and so on, and we're elevating Waylon Jennings and George Jones, and I love all them cats, but I'm just saying. So, gang, Afro on the cover of Time, huh? Very nice. Very nice. My thinning hair was on the back page of the New York Times Magazine, I must say. As it's been pointed out, I'm aging. As if I was going to stay the same age 30 years later. But thank you so much, Chocolate Charming. Now, gang, when we think about what Ninth was just talking about, the educational aspect, right? Here we are involved right now in huge debates about AP, Advanced Placement on African American Studies. Now, we ain't gonna get into that too deep, except to say Ron DeSantis is George Wallace standing in the door of the university, right? Keeping Vivian Malone, whose younger sister was going to marry Eric Holder and become a doctor Yale trained herself. This is the fear and the depth of white supremacy, is that it would attempt to eviscerate and eradicate black genius, but we just keep coming, right? That's the point that Ninth Wonder is making. But in terms of education, talk to us about the importance of culture as an instrument of enlightenment about the crises we confront as a culture, whether it's about AP, whether it's about CRT, and so on. Help us understand how culture engages those realities.
Do it, babe. I have one sentence. Good. I would say that we think about education in terms of identity, and how we might offer that to our generation and the ones behind us.
Yeah. So being in the creative, space and sphere, and looking at this work as somewhat of research where we're trying to produce and promote and preserve as much culture as possible, because that's important. But telling the truth about America's creative culture, I feel is the education that our people need as it relates to our identity. So if you ask the question, who's the king of rock and roll, a lot of people would say Elvis. But what about Buddy Guy and Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry, right? And Little Richard's the king of rock and roll. So I think that so we're finding ways to tell these stories, these authentic stories about our history as it relates to our culture and our experience, so they're not erased. So we can tell young black kids that the guitar came from you, the banjo came from Africa. We should be proud of this history, and just like what will that do for our youth coming up, which we talk about swag, and like we also talk about like rock stars, like that is also you. We made rock music. It's the basis of, it's the blues. We made Nashville. So I think that that's the piece of education that we are looking to bestow as it relates to our own identity and culture.
Mm-hmm. No, very powerful. Very powerful, very powerful. Miss Ashley Chu, as a full-time artist, right, you underscored that, and that's extremely important to say, because ain't many people can really say that's what they do for real. Not an avocation, not a hobby. Talk to us about the difficulty of launching an artistic career as a brilliant, gifted, beautiful black woman, not yet in her prime. Right? Because the genius awakens in you and calls you forward. So talk to us as you grow into the height of who you are, what it means to be a full-time artist as a black woman.
Well, first of all, I super believe in myself.
Yes, ma'am.
And I have this phrase that I say to myself, and to my friends, it's an inside joke, but I'll tell you guys. And I say, I do the work, so I don't have to worry about if it was me or if it was you. So I make sure that I am always prepared and ready, ahead of the game, on to the next thing. Because even when doors are closing, when a door is open, I am prepared and I am ready, and it's an even bigger blessing. So if there's a no or a rejection, I just keep it moving. And that willpower will outwork a lot of talent.
Well, she preaching up in here tonight. Is this prayer meeting night? Lord, won't he do it? Wow. I'm writing all this stuff down in my head. I'm preaching this on Sunday at Howard, dog. Willpower, overcoming talent. Dadgum. Cain and Abel. Brother Knife, when we think about, I want to revisit this, right? Because you're a legitimate professor, teacher at an incredibly sophisticated and elite university. And you're teaching mostly, right, young non-African American children, right? When we talk about Obama, wouldn't be no Obama without Jay, Nas, Rakim, right? Standing by the speaker, suddenly I had a fever. Was it me or summer madness? That Rakim. I know y'all sleeping on Rock, but his Ninth Wonder reminded us tonight. He changed the pattern and intonation of hip hop. So ever since him, people have been trying to talk like him, but before him, they couldn't even imagine him coming. So you're teaching at a predominantly white institution, and you are literally changing the minds of people who are going to be senators and doctors and lawyers and all that stuff. Talk to us about the power of hip hop to really forge a connection between generations and also to offer a platform to bring real change about in the minds of young people.
I mean, outside of math, hip hop is the most universal thing that we have on this planet. I told the kids this morning I can go to another country and they might not know any English at all. But if I play Cream by Wu-Tang, they know the whole thing. Right? It's amazing. It's crazy because one of the first places of how I learned that I taught was Harvard. I taught at Harvard for like 3 or 4 years. And the thing about Harvard is what we have to understand is if you want to talk about the next leaders of this country, they're sitting in front of me in a classroom, right? And they come from parents who are leaders. You know, I taught a kid whose dad was a second in command at HBO one time. I'm like, what? But the thing of it is, they have the platform, already the ready-made platform, to be the change they want to see. We had a conversation about radio and how radio was set up. And one of the white kids in the class asked me, what do I need to do? I said, be the change you want to see. What change do you want? And he's like, I don't like what's on the radio. I want more diversity. Well, you have the platform and, in your case, the capital to change that.
Right.
And the same thing at Duke University. You know, Duke is the #2 African American Studies program in the country, after Harvard, which is #1. But again, I'm getting a new generation of kids. I'm getting a generation of kids. You have to understand, my 18-year-olds was 15 when George Floyd passed away, right? Now they're coming in with a different mind frame, a different idea of liberalism. And so now when I'm going around the classroom on the first day of class and I'm asking them what's their favorite rapper, you'd be surprised of the answers that I'm getting. I'm getting a lot of Nas, a lot of Kendrick, a lot of Jay, a lot of thought-provoking type of MCs. Not only coming from my black kids, but also coming from my white kids, right?
Right.
And so now things are changing. People are coming more aware of things. These kids, the next generation, are coming more aware. You know, hip-hop is one of those things, like I said, that put us all together, right? I'm 48 years old, so I'm probably, by proxy and by the mark of desegregation, the first generation to go to school with a bunch of white kids, right? And so for that, now you have to think about kids in 2023, where they're thinking about, they're more racially conscious. Sometimes I think we put our racial fears and things on the next generation, and they got their thing together. They understand what, you know, being emotionally available as far as racism and knowledge and everything, like they know what's going on. So teaching that and letting them know the history of hip hop at the same time. There was this young white lady in my class and white woman in my class, and she said, you know, I said, why do you take my class? She said, because I eat a lot of this stuff called hip hop and I want to know what's in it. I want to know what the diet is. And that blew me away. And she said, I used to listen for entertainment. Now I'm in this class learning to listen with intention. And, you know, put about 300 or 400 people from other races out like that every year. We're making some change, right?
Yeah,
so
no doubt.
That's the change.
Yes,
That's
sir.
the change.
Yeah. Me and you about the same age. Okay, I'm a couple years older than you, but okay, I'm 64. But what I'm saying is that we about the same age mentally. No, you're much more mature than me, let's be real. But yeah, we're about to take a break, but let me just say that, you know, and I joke a lot out, you know, when I talk about mumble rap, like I like words I can understand. You know, I'm just joking, sort of. And, you know, like a Nas, it's only right that I was born to use mics, and the stuff that I write is even tougher than dice. And then I joke and I say, what is my man saying, Future? I said, are you doing an auction? I mean, what's going on there, bro? Hot damn. But then I thought, well, maybe they are mumbling because when they were clear and articulate, you hated them too. So now they code switch into a blues aesthetic. The melody is central, right, to what Migos is doing, right? And the transition between, right, when Donald Glover stands up and says the Migos are the Beatles of their generation, a lot of people ain't even heard of them. But it transformed the landscape sonically of what we hear. So when I think about young black folk in particular engaging in artistic expression and endeavor, what hip hop has done is opened up a possibility that many of us had refused to acknowledge. And as Knife said, think about it. 1918, Good Housekeeping magazine, who put the sin in syncopation? They weren't talking about Old Dirty Bastard, because his great grandma wasn't even born then. They're talking about jazz music. In the brothel of New Orleans, Louis Armstrong, right? This is what they're speaking about, because there's been a vain repetition of resistance to the greatness of our art. And I end by saying this. I don't know if it's apocryphal or not, but they said during the Harlem Renaissance, a group of Negro musicians went over to Europe to speak to the great artists and symphonic composers. And they said, you're trying to learn from us and you got Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington, right? We don't even recognize our own genius grown at home. These geniuses, gang, right? Molly and Alan Bacon, Sister Ashley Chu, and Brother Ninth Wonder are our homegrown geniuses. We're gonna transition now, take a small break so we can set up so the audience can ask questions, but give it up for the enormity of their talent and skill. I'm gonna sit down? You wanna sit down? Okay. Yeah, they want you to sit. They want me to sit down.
As you head out, stay close, stay close. We're going to take a short break here, and we'll have you come back here. For the second part of our program, we invite you to ask questions of the panel. So I just want to make sure you guys all know as you come back that we'll open it up for question and answer. We'll take a short break here. Test.
Yes, sir. I love the rivalry, but I also love basketball. Basketball, that doesn't make sense to me. They wouldn't make it. Having four running starters in the same place. Yeah, I don't know.
We're going back, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll resume our program in about 30 seconds. Had a quick stretch there, We'll resume our program in about 30 seconds. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll take your seats again, Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started again. We'll resume our program here. Come on back into your seats. We're going to resume our program here. That's what we call a pause instead of the intermission. A pause. Come on back in, everybody. We'll open the floor to questions here. I first want to give a round of applause to our panelists tonight who have traveled with us from near and far to be here with us. And as we open questions, I want you to know that you feel free to ask Dr. Dyson questions as well. If you do have a question, please feel free to line up at one of the microphones that's here. There's one here in the middle of the room, and we'll get to your questions directly. I'd like to ask one of the first two questions, actually. And my first question is for Ninth. You talked about recognizing that jazz synonymous to what hip-hop was. So in this present time, do you see what the next coming ups are? What do we need to be open to hearing from the young ones today?
I'm not sure, because I'm a historian, so I understand history repeats itself. The new artist of the year, the one new artist at the Grammys, was a young lady by the name of Samara Joy. Mm-hmm. And the most remarkable thing about her is she sounds like she's from the Harlem Renaissance. And she's 23 years old. So just imagine what she is doing for a 14-year-old girl that's watching her, right? So I believe everything runs in loops. I 100% believe that. And I think we're at the cycle where we're going to start to see some of the things we think we've as long forgotten now starting to come back. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to say what the next art form is going to be. It may be a mixture of a lot, but I'm excited to see what the presence of her, what she does for the next generation of kids. So we'll see.
And the lessons to learn is to be open to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about, and gang, I'll pose this question to you, but any of you feel free to answer it. During the pandemic, we were dealing with this. And then we also had the protests following George Floyd's death. And from that, we had pain, suffering, strife. We saw rioting, we saw protesting, but we also saw art. When downtown buildings were boarded up, the artists came out to make sure we weren't just looking at boarded up buildings. And that art on those buildings told stories. And when those buildings opened again and those panels were taken down, those panels moved to museums because they told a chapter in our history. What do those messages from that time, which is not too far in the past, what do they say to you about our local art, our local story?
Thanks for the question. Is this on? Yes. Okay. I think the important thing to remember is that in a time of desperation, in a time when our city didn't know where to turn or what to do, we turned to the arts. Right, at a time when, you walk downtown and everything that you just described, our city looked to the heroes of society to tell the story of what was going on and to heal and to provide some comfort. And so we saw that with the boarded up windows downtown. We saw that with the Black Lives Matter mural. We even saw it during March Madness when, again, the city said, what are we going to do? And it turned to our sector. So I think that's what we need to ask ourselves why. We need to think about the importance and the empower of the arts in those moments.
Yeah, and just as an African American people, we are a nation of artists, and this is how we communicate, not just with each other, but to the world.
We've got some questions there, so I'll begin with whoever's first in line there. I saw a microphone, but I don't see it anymore. There it is.
Hello. So my name is Crystal, and I want to thank Gang for putting this on. I want to thank for being a part of this. I want to thank the Steward series. This is an awesome event. I'm very excited to be here. My question is for Ninth. I am a proud fast auntie. And I don't.
You have to explain what that means to everybody.
Ninth, during the pandemic, he blessed us with a set, and I know, and this is no diss to him, but I know that there's another very famous DJ who got a lot of props for getting people together during the pandemic, but Ninth also did many DJ sets, and he named it the Fast Auntie Lounge. And so there are, I'm here with my friend, and she is also a proud member of the Fast Auntie Lounge. So I'm a huge fan. And what I want to ask, and I'm sorry if it offends anybody, but I'm going to ask it how I want to ask it. And this is that I feel often that African Americans are almost punked into humility when they are so good at a thing, right? And you are a master at what you do. And so maybe because your name isn't out there like a Jam or Lewis or a Babyface, but people in the hip hop community, if you're a true hip hop head, you cannot mention hip hop and not put Ninth Wonder in that sentence. And you are a professor, and you are so humble. And what I want to know is what keeps you grounded to not want to talk your shit? Because you are, you are simply amazing. And so I want to know, what is it in you that keeps you that humble? Because you really could be out there talking as much crap as a Kanye or a whoever who likes to talk their stuff. You are on that level, if not better. So what keeps you grounded?
Honestly, my mom and daddy. I can't even, I wish I could lie, but I can't. My mama found her way to Facebook. I didn't do it. And she also found her way to Instagram. My dad could care less. My mom is 80 years old. My dad is 81. And I went to the same elementary school my mom taught. So I was not only watched by her, I was watched by every teacher in the school, right? Because they were probably all came to the hospital when I was born, right? So I've always been a stickler for not showing out in front of elders. I've always been like that, and I don't know what she is. Where's Tia? I'm gonna call out. So the young lady in the back with the blonde hair, that is my best friend of 35 years, and we met in a college prep program at Wake Forest University in the summer of 1989 when we were 14. And not only was I afraid of my mother, I was afraid of hers too. I was afraid of her father. We had an incredible village we had. And so I believe that's what it is. I'm very fearful of my village. And I know the things that I type, the things that I put up on social media, that somebody's watching, not another hip hop artist. I'm afraid to call. I'm gonna get from my mom and say, now you're not supposed to say this, and this. So with that, I think that's what kept me in a place of humility and just kept me in a place of just do the work, like you said. And that's pretty much it, is my mom and daddy. That's it. I can't put no sense in that.
Hello, how you doing today?
Hello.
My name is Shane Shepard, and I have a question, and it's kind of for the audience, for us as a group. A lot of us, I hear the word diversity and inclusion a lot, and to me, when I first hear that, that means we're trying to get at a table that we've otherwise been shut out in, or we're trying to get in a venue or a genre that we otherwise been underrepresented in. Well, the same young men that Ninth Wonder talks about that makes these great songs, if they not currently famous rappers, most people in the room would be afraid of them or shun them. And these are the people that as soon as they make a good song, that's our young man. But if he's not a rapper and he just walks around looking like the rappers look, then us who asked for diversity and inclusion at other tables, we shun those young men. So my question now becomes, how can I appreciate his art when I don't take the time to appreciate him?
He asked the audience, ain't he?
Right. Yeah.
Woo, 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 woo. Absolutely. I often say a lot of times when we say Black Lives Matter, do we mean every black life? I say that all the time, man, and that's something that we've been struggling with because we are quick to when we move to our certain neighborhoods, we kick to say, we want to kick our cousins to the curb sometimes. But that's a slippery slope, man. You know what I mean? We're always judged, no matter what. It's one thing to be judged by other races, but be judged by your own is something else. But it's a slippery slope because on one hand, I understand exactly what you're saying, 100%. They started that splitting us up in the elementary schools when they tracked us. That's when they started it, But I don't feel you should be judged by this, although, again, we'll tell you in a minute, everybody can't go, right? But we all need to do a better job of we got Quavo and the late Takeoff and Future and all the young guys. We're quick to give them praise when they step on the BET stage, but we're quick to run away from them when we see them on the street. And we was having a conversation with Mr. Steward earlier about being able to listen to our youth instead of running from them. And that's heavy, man. That's a heavy topic. I don't even think we got enough time for that, but I appreciate the question for real.
I have a jumbled up answer. It's making me think about Ninth when you said genreification, which is so interesting. Thank you for saying that. I wrote that down. It makes me think of the evolution of music and brands, how it gets evolved, not by us, which perpetuates the erasure of our authorship and prevents economic justice. And so it feels like there are two things that we need to keep in mind. And one is that the arts and equity, these conversations are inextricably linked, right? We shouldn't separate them. And it's obvious that we don't know who we are. We don't know our power. And so you can ask a question like that about how do I respect this person's art, but because you didn't call him an artist. So that's why.
Dr. Dyson, you got anything to say to that one?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. Brother Shepard, of course, raises the quintessential question, right? Because if you make an argument, as I hear him saying, to be included in a circle at a table, but you haven't included the depth and range of your own people, then what are you being included in? You are doing white supremacy's job by proxy. You're winnowing out and tamping down on the ferocity of expression of young people. You think about Thomas Kochman's book, Black and White Styles in Conflict. A lot of young black males in particular are read as uproarious, as disrespectful, when what they're performing is a desire for affirmation and recognition. The reason hip hop is a culture's daddy is because what do? This is from a nigga in the hood. Then they name all of them like you do in church. You name them one by one. This is from a man who got locked up 4 years ago. There is a fundamental politics of recognition that exists in the name affirmation within hip hop culture that we often overlook. So partly, if you're making an argument for white folk to include you or us, and we've failed to do the same with our own people, you've undercut the argument for your participation in the larger circle of American privilege. So I think that the Sister Molly's response in terms of what we do when we put labels on folk, when we acknowledge them as an artist, was Jay-Z an artist when he was selling drugs? He still had rhetorical genius. In fact, he's using the street corner as a methodology of memory because he has to put into pockets of memory what his words are because he can't stop selling crack long enough to write them down. So now mnemonic devices are generated out of necessity from his own preoccupation. But he was a genius, and Biggie was a genius, and Nas as an 8th grade dropout was a genius. It's only right that I was born to use mics, and the stuff that I write is even tougher than dice. I'm taking rapping to a new plateau through rap slow. My rhyming is a vitamin held without a capsule. Smooth criminal on beat breaks. Never put me in your box if your shit eats tapes. Come on, Tia. Come on, Tia. Can I get number two? Can I get number two? Can I get number two? You're so hardcore. But my point simply is this, is that recognition of talent and ability among one another is as crucial and critical as any affirmation from the so-called dominant white world. So when you listen to these young people up here, each one of these young folk are extraordinarily brilliant. You can hear it in the language, in the refinement, in the sophistication, but also in the contemplation that we don't often give acknowledgement to. So for me, yes, it is extremely important. Coming from a family where one of us went to Penn as a professor and another one was in the pen for 30 years when he died. Mm-hmm. And that's real to me. Coming out of Detroit with the existential grief, with the mourning that we did over the lost lives because we grew up in the hood. I didn't have a hip hop culture to turn to. So I listened to Marvin Gaye. I listened to Sam Cooke. I listened to Aretha Franklin. And those were therapists of my yearning and desire to be a better human being. So when I hear Brother Shepherd talk about that, and I hear Brother Ninth respond, and Sister Molly respond, and Brother Bacon and Sister Ashley, it is because as a collective, our own ability to check and challenge and change each other is the beauty of our culture. And that doesn't have to be hating. That's about critique and moral thought given to one another in the interest of love. So that's what I would say.
I love that. Yeah, I got like 15 seconds. I got 15 seconds. I mean, just talk about just the recognition of talent and of art. I mean, that is actually embracing your culture. So if you're not recognizing that art and that talent, what are you doing?
And I wanted to add also the reverse of that is acknowledging people in a way like if they are at the table, not reversing it and saying, oh, you're trying to act white. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're trying to be white. Just because their interests are not perceived hood or you know, like, yeah, you know what I'm
Right.
trying to word this right. Y'all
Right,
got this
yeah.
on camera. Also, the reverse of that is just because kids are different from you, adults are different from you, have different interests, that it's close to whiteness and white supremacy. Like, it's okay to like different genres of music and art and sports without it being perceived of trying to act white.
Right.
So also the reverse of that is acknowledging different interests is also a form of blackness.
And recognizing our diversity as a people. I like that you presented this question to the whole audience, because I think that that's a question that we all need to dig and look in ourselves and figure out what the fear is of talking with each other, what we're scared of or expecting, and that ability to ask ourselves, why aren't we meeting each other where we are, no matter what? So being willing to speak and being willing to listen, I think, is something that somewhere is the answer to that question. I have a patient young lady who's been here with the microphone in the back, a lovely lady in red.
Hello, my name is Andriana, and I'm actually a 12th grade senior at one of Washington Township's high schools.
Yes.
I have two questions, one for ninth and one for Gang Gang. My first question for ninth is, as a black poet, what advice would you give to a 17-year-old artist as myself?
Say that last part again.
As a black poet, what advice would you give to a 17-year-old artist like myself?
Whether you were a poet, whether you were a rapper, a producer, whatever it is, the one thing I can tell you to do that will, for the betterment of you, is understand the history that you come from. You said you were a black poet. The first thing I think of was Gwendolyn Brooks. You know who Gwendolyn Brooks is? That's okay. Gwendolyn Brooks was an intricate part of the Harlem Renaissance, right? She did everything from that to being one of the people that advised the show Sesame Street. That's how powerful she was. And so the one thing about understanding the history of what you come from, that's called mastering your craft. In order for you to be the best at what you do, you must be an expert at what you do. Nobody should be able to tell you more about what you do. Nobody should be able to tell you that. So the first thing I always tell young people to do is, before you start being a practitioner of what you're trying to do, just study it. Take some time, study it. Well, for some strange reason, and I don't say for some strange reason, because I understand technology has had this effect on young people. You think you don't have time. You have you say, how old are you? I'm 48. See how much time that is, right? You have more time, right? And please, at this age where you are, appreciate the time that you have, because once the time is gone, it's amazing to me when young people say, I don't have time. You don't know what that means to try to figure out. So I would say 100% study all black poets as much as you possibly can. Learn from them, be influenced by them. You may start to sound like one after a while. That's just the normal process, right? Imitation is the best form of flattery sometimes. So you're gonna do that, but after a while you'll come into your own, and when you write the piece that sounds just like you, with influences, you'll know. But I implore you to start with Gwendolyn Brooks. Start there, okay? All right.
Did you have a second question? Okay. Would you like to ask your second question?
She asked how the name Gang Gang came about. Well, we were trying to figure out how to name this thing that we had come up with the night before, this concept, from the night before, and Alan was just kind of pacing around saying words like book, cup, pen, gang, 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 suit, color. And I said, pause, gang, gang's really cute. And we're word people. So we went to the dictionary and found that gang, the definition of gang is a way or a journey. And then later in Middle English, it was a set of things or people that are on a journey together. And we thought, oh my gosh, how beautiful. So the way that gang, the term is used now to criminalize groups of black men is false. It's made up. So what an opportunity to reclaim the beauty of a word that all of you are now on with us. We're all on this journey together. So yeah, that's where gang gang came from. Plus, we just wanted everybody to know who we're talking to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Thank you for asking that question.
And as a 49-year-old, that makes sense to me.
I'd like to ask one more question on your behalf as a young poet. And I will pose this question to Ashley Chu. And I'd like you to tell us, as our final question for the night, how do you look at the world through an artist's eye at a young age?
Oh, wow, because I'm still looking through those eyes. I would say, can you ask the question one
Sure.
more time?
And I'll clarify too. How do you look at the world through an artist's eye? Artists look at things differently. They draw on what's within, and they apply that to what they see around them. Are you conscious when you're walking around, this can be art, this speaks to me, this struggle I'm going with needs to be expressed?
Yes, and I guess the reason why I can't describe it is because you can't describe it, because you're a creative or you're not. Everybody has creative qualities, but to be a active creator, because musicians, they hear things differently. Writers, they write things differently. They put words together differently. Directors, they frame things differently. They see colors differently. So there is no way to describe it because you're only having your experience in your body. And this is the experience I've only ever known because I've never not known being a creative. But it goes from innocence when you're young to like, now I'm just delusional. So, so, you're being a creative is just something you can't describe. There's people that cry in new albums and cry in front of paintings, and then there's the other half of people that just think I'm crazy for that. So I think the way you see the world is like truly individual, and that there's no way to accurately describe that.
Kat, you want to?
That's brilliant. I come from an artistic register that's often consumed but not often seen as an art, and that's preaching, right? And for me, right, I'm thinking, well, amen. I'm thinking about, I'm writing a book now on black preachers because black hip hop artists have led the way in many ways to reclaim an ancestry that has been obscured over the years. And the diversity of black preaching is hardly recognized. I grew up when a guy named William Augustus Jones out of Brooklyn, New York, they sit after sundown at supper, wondering who's going to be the big shot in the kingdom of God. I mean, like, this dude is preaching no notes, right? And then when you get real close to God, with the sweltering sun, right? And then all that, right? All that music. Or Gardner Taylor, God saves us not by flattering us, but by opposing us. So when I think about hip hop at its best, and I think about black preaching at its best, I think the art form, seeing the world, you don't consciously say, I am an artist, and therefore I'm going to see the world. Art is the product of seeing. Seeing doesn't lead to art, right? And so I think at that level, for all the folk up here, I can't speak for them, but the enormity of their brilliance manifests itself. But two things, right? The thing that Ninth and Ashley both said about do all Black Lives matter, and then don't judge me as being non-Black because I don't fit your category. I'll end by saying this. I was preaching in a church in Cleveland, and a Black woman came up to me after I finished. She says, "You know you're going to hell." I said, "Well, ma'am, that's interesting." I said, did Jesus tell you that? Because, like, I spoke to him this morning, he ain't mentioned no flames, okay? Not even Burger King on the grill, right? And she says, "Don't be smart. You know what I'm talking about." I said, "Ma'am, I know 25 reasons why I should go to hell. I'm just curious, what reason do you know?" Because my phone is locked. That's 15 of them right there. She did not appreciate my humor. But then she told me, she said, "You know why you're going to hell? Because this morning from the pulpit, you preach that God created gay people." I said, "Ma'am, now you think I'm going to hell?" I said, "You must be a polytheist. You must think there's a God for gay people and one for straight people." I said, "Either God created everybody or God ain't created nobody. It ain't no in between." I'm saying that to say, right, it's not like God took off on Wednesday and said, "Creating people is hard. Let me let the second shift God come in." And then the second shift God created gay people, because that's what the crackerocracy and white supremacists said about you as a Black person. I said, so how can you use the Bible to justify the same process of bigotry that was deployed against your vulnerable Black body as a woman and as a Black person? So I say, to echo what Ninth said, what Ashley said, and what this beautiful, powerful, brilliant couple, the Bacons, said, that we must respect the integrity of our individuality, even as we acclaim the collective experience of what Blackness means. Because James Baldwin was read out of the race, and yet he read the race brilliantly and was capable of making us believe that we were Black in a special way. Angela Davis has a woman lover, but Angela Davis was as tough as anybody has ever been in the defense of Black people against the onslaught of white supremacy in the late 60s and early 1970s. So I beg of you, listen and love each other and accept the diversity of Blackness, because none of us has a copyright on the beauty and the power and the integrity of that Blackness. Let it breathe through all of us. We are all lungs of that Blackness. Allow us to breathe freely.
And with that, I do want to thank our panel for being here with us tonight. Give you a round of applause. Thank you to Alan and Molly Bacon, to Ninth Wonder, to Ashley Chu, and to Dr. Dyson, who will be back with us. Dr. Dyson, you're coming back with us in April. You will see you soon. Yes. He'll be back in Indianapolis on April 23rd for the Monster Meeting Series. So thank you to our panelists. Thank you for the questions and answers. I do want to bring to the stage really quick here, before everyone's ready to, we got a little more now. We're almost there, I promise. We're almost there. But please give a warm welcome, because without her, this event would not be possible. So please welcome to the podium Kimberly Bostic, the board chair, the managing director.
I'm going to stand down here. First off, I need to say thank you. You know, this entire series has been about culture, art and culture, the next generation. How do we bring the youth along? And so many times we talk about our elders, the people, you know, before us that are scared to pass the torch. And that is not the case for Steward Speakers. This event is here because he believes in secession. He believes in bringing people along. He believes in collaboration. And without him having the vision to share his own dream, we wouldn't be here today. So thank you, Matthew Stewart. I also want to make sure that we give recognition to the woman behind all of this, Ms. Jennifer McLeod. Thank you so much for everything that you do to make this happen. Education is a big theme for Steward speakers, and we will have some amazing announcements that'll be coming out, but we need each and every one of you. We need you to keep coming. We need you to keep supporting. We need you to keep giving your opinion. You'll get surveys. After this event, we'll send out an email, and we need you to respond to those surveys. We are committed to making sure that our children hear and learn about their culture, that they learn about their Black history, not only in the eyes of slavery, but in the greatness of who we are and who they are. And so we want you to support that. I want you to know that this is our commitment. We are committed to changing how we educate our youth, and we need all of you to join us. So make sure that you stay tuned. We have our next event in April. It is a gala. If you haven't got your tickets, please do so. And I will just say the next season will blow your mind. So the minute that we put the season tickets on sale, I implore you to go get them very soon. Thank you guys so much for coming, and have a wonderful night.